The massive alien ship hung in space like a dark jewel against the stars. Its hull gleamed with strange metals that seemed to shift color in the light. Lo, after 20 years in the Marines, and 5 more as an astronaut, he thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. Pretty impressive, isn't it? Dr. Lisa Grant said from the seat beside him. The linguist had spent months learning what little they knew about alien languages. The harmony. Wing is supposedly one of their smaller diplomatic vessels. Smaller. Pete Collins laughed from across the narrow aisle. The security officer was trying to look relaxed, but Jake could see the tension in his shoulders. Things bigger than 3 aircraft carriers put together. Jake nodded and checked his watch. In 10 minutes, they would dock with the alien ship. The thought made his stomach tight with nervous energy. The shuttle pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. Docking in 5 minutes. They're guiding us in with some kind of tractor beam. I've never seen anything like it. Through the window, Jake watched as their small craft was pulled gently toward a glowing opening in the alien ship's side. The docking bay was enormous. Dozens of other vessels sat in organized rows, each one different from the others. Some looked like metal insects, others resembled flowing water frozen in time. A few seemed to be made entirely of crystal. 12 different species, Lisa whispered, reading from her notes. The Galactic Council represents over 300 worlds. They've been watching us for 50 years, waiting for us to develop faster. Then light travel. Lucky us, Pete muttered. That. He adjusted the small camera on his collar. Everything they saw would be recorded and sent back to Earth. The shuttle settled into the docking bay with barely a bump. Through the walls, they could hear the hiss of atmosphere being pumped in. A green light appeared on the pilot's console. Gravity feels normal. Good luck in there. Jake stood and straightened his dark blue uniform. It was the best humanity had to offer. Clean, professional, but not too military. The brass back on Earth wanted to make a good first impression. He wasn't sure if that was possible anymore. The shuttle door opened with a soft whoosh. Jake stepped out first, followed by Lisa and Pete. The docking bay was even bigger than it had looked from outside. The ceiling stretched up into shadows. Strange lights floated in the air without any visible support. A group of aliens waited for them at the bottom of the shuttle's ramp. Jake had seen pictures, but seeing them in person was different. The leader was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and 4 arms. Its head was larger than a human's, with huge dark eyes that seemed to see everything. This had to be Ambassador Kethver of the Zeridian Empire. Welcome, humans, the alien said. Jake's jaw clenched. I am Ambassador Kethver. We have been eager to meet you. Captain Jake Morrison, Jake replied, extending his hand. The alien looked at it for a moment before touching it briefly with one of its 4 hands. The skin felt cool and dry. You have much to learn. Jake felt his smile tighten. Guide new species. The words sounded friendly, but there was something underneath them that he didn't like. Other aliens moved closer. Jake saw one that looked like a walking tree with bark-covered skin and glowing sap for eyes. Another resembled a giant insect, its shell reflecting the floating lights like a mirror. A third looked almost human, except for the scales covering its arms and the gill slits on its neck. This is Dr. Veltar, Kethver said, gesturing to a shorter alien with gray skin and too many joints in its arms. He has studied your species extensively. Dr. Veltar stepped forward and made a sound that might have been laughter. Fascinating creatures, humans. So young, so primitive, yet you've managed to achieve basic space travel. It's proper guidance. You might become useful members of the galactic community. Lisa stepped forward with her brightest diplomatic smile. We're honored by your interest in humanity. We hope this marks the beginning of a long friendship between our peoples. New, an interesting concept. Of course, friendship requires understanding one's place in the larger order of things. His marine instincts were starting to wake up. Something about this conversation felt wrong. The galaxy can be dangerous for young species, another alien said. The Galactic Council provides protection and guidance to prevent unfortunate incidents. Pete's hand moved slightly toward his sidearm. Jake caught the motion and shook his head slightly. Not yet. Protection, Jake said slowly. What kinda? Protection? Complete protection, Kethfer said. We will handle all external threats and dangerous contacts. Your species will be safe to develop under our care. Lisa's diplomatic smile faltered. Your species is very young, Dr. Veltar explained patiently. You still engage in warfare among yourselves. You damage your own planet's environment, create weapons of mass destruction. Clearly, you are not ready for the responsibilities of true galactic citizenship. Jake felt heat rising in his chest. So what are you suggesting? Protectorate arrangement, Kethfer said. Earth will be placed under Galactic Council protection. We will manage your external affairs, oversee your technological development, and help you overcome your more. Several of them made sounds that might have been amusement, refuse. The bear-like alien rumbled. Young species do not refuse the Council's protection. It would be unwise. Jake looked around the docking bay. More aliens had gathered to watch the conversation. He could see something in their faces, not curiosity, but the kind of look a person gives to a new pet. They were here to collect another species for their collection. Captain Morrison Kethfer said, perhaps you do not understand the realities of galactic civilization. Allow me to show you something that will help clarify your situation. The alien gestured, and a section of the bay's wall slid away. Beyond it was a vast chamber filled with what looked like trophies, weapons, armor, and artifacts from dozens of different cultures hung on display. In their best interests, Jake stared at the collection. Some of the weapons looked crude and primitive. Others seemed incredibly advanced. All of them belonged to species that had apparently been convinced to join the galactic community. I see, Jake said quietly. Excellent, Kethfer smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. I knew humans would be reasonable once they understood. Their situation, the integration process, can begin immediately. Jake turned to look at Lisa and Pete. He could see his own thoughts reflected in their faces. This wasn't first contact. This was conquest dressed up in diplomatic language. Ambassador, Kethfer, Jake said, his voice perfectly calm. I think there's something you should know about humans. What is that? Jake smiled. But it wasn't the kind of smile that belonged in a diplomatic meeting. It was the kind of smile that had made enemy soldiers nervous in 3 different wars. We don't like bullies. The tension in the docking bay grew thick after Jake's words. Ambassador Kethfer, S4 arms, moved in what might have been surprise or anger. The other aliens shifted closer, their various eyes and sensors focused on the 3 humans. Bullies? Kethfer repeated. His musical voice had lost its friendly tone. Captain Morrison, I fear you misunderstand the situation. We are not bullies. We are protectors of galactic peace. Right, Jake said. Dr. Veltar made a clicking sound with his throat. Perhaps the humans need a demonstration of why Council protection is necessary. They seem to believe their primitive aggression makes them dangerous. Primitive aggression? Pete stepped forward, his hand now openly resting on his weapon. You wanna see primitive aggression? Lisa grabbed Pete's arm. Easy, she whispered. We're outnumbered about 50 to 1. Security officer speaks wisdom, Kethfer said, though his concern is unnecessary. We do not wish to harm you. The ambassador gestured to something behind the humans. Jake turned and felt his blood turn cold. Walking toward them was the biggest living thing he had ever seen. The creature stood at least 8 feet tall. That overlapped like armor plating. Massive muscles moved under the scaled hide as it walked. Its arms were as thick as tree trunks, ending in hands that bore 6-inch claws. The head was long and narrow, filled with teeth designed for tearing meat. This is Vraxel Huntmaster. Of the Korthok species, Kethfer announced. He serves as the Council's enforcement specialist. Vraxel stopped 10 feet from the humans. When he spoke, his voice was like gravel being crushed. He has personally subdued representatives of 47 different species. Most surrendered when they saw him. The few who fought lasted less than a minute. This was a killing machine with intelligence behind it. Impressive, Jake said. What's your point? Kethfer's eyes widened slightly. My point, Captain Morrison, is that some lessons are best learned through experience. Perhaps you would like to test your primitive aggression against true galactic strength? You want me to fight him? Jake asked. Demonstration, Kethra corrected. Surely you do not expect to actually fight the Huntmaster? The alien's claws could tear through metal. Its muscles could probably crush a human skull like an egg. Any sane person would back down, apologize, and accept whatever deal the council offered. Jake had never been accused of being sane. All right, he said. Let's do it. The silence that followed was complete. Even the floating lights seemed to dim. Lisa stared at Jake like he had lost his mind. Pete's mouth hung open. The aliens looked confused, as if they couldn't process what they had just heard. Jake, no, Lisa whispered. Dead serious, Jake replied. He started removing his uniform jacket. Where do we do this? Captain Morrison Kethver said carefully. Perhaps you do not understand this is not a game. The Huntmaster does not play. If you face him, you will be hurt. Your boy here thinks humans are weak. I think it's time someone showed him different. Dr. Veltar was making rapid notes on a device that looked like a cross between a tablet and a starfish. Fascinating. Or maybe we're just tired of being looked down on, Pete muttered. Kethford gestured, and a section of the bay's floor began to rise. Within minutes, it had formed a circular platform about 30 feet across. The edges were raised slightly, creating a natural arena. More. Aliens began to gather around the platform. Word was spreading quickly through the ship. The combat circle, Vraxel said, climbing onto the platform with easy grace. Here, I have broken the strongest warriors of dozens of worlds. Here I will show these soft humans what true strength means. Jake climbed up after him. The platform felt solid under his feet. Good. He would need solid footing for what was coming. Jake, Lisa called from below. What? You don't have to do this. We can find another way. He pulled off his uniform shirt, leaving just his undershirt and pants. They won't respect us unless we make them. Sometimes you have to fight for respect. The crowd of aliens was growing larger. Jake could see dozens of different species gathering around the platform. Oh, they were all watching him with the same expression. The look people give to a mouse that has wandered into a cage with a cobra. Will the human require weapons? Kethfor asked. We can provide basic implements. No weapons, Jake said. Just hands. Fraxel flexed his claws. They gleamed like knives in the strange light. No weapons for me either, then. It will be more sporting that way. Sporting, Jake repeated. Right. Or warm-up routine. He stretched his massive arms, showing off muscles that could lift a small car. He practiced quick strikes with his claws, the air whistling as they cut through space. Each movement was precise, controlled, deadly. The aliens around the platform were making sounds, clicking, whistling, growling. Jake realized they were placing bets on the fight. Most seemed to be betting on how quickly it would end. The Huntmaster's people are pursuit predators, Dr. Veltar announced to the crowd. They evolved to chase down prey across vast distances. Their bone structure is 3 times denser than baseline humanoid normal. Their reaction speed is enhanced by redundant nervous systems. What about the human? Someone called out. Humans are tool users, Veltar replied dismissively. They evolved to solve problems through cooperation and simple implements. Without tools, they are among the weakest species we have encountered. Jake finished his own stretching routine, his body for violence. He rolled his shoulders, cracked his knuckles, and took several deep breaths. You still have time to surrender, Vraxel said. The Huntmaster had finished his display and now stood in the center of the platform. I will make it quick, if you yield now. Thanks, but I'll pass, Jake said. His drill instructor would have recognized. Kethver raised one of his forearms. Let it be recorded that the human captain Jake Morrison chose this combat freely. Jake said. The ambassador's arm dropped. Begin. Vraxel moved first. The Huntmaster's speed was incredible for something his size. He crossed half the platform in 2 quick steps, his claws aimed at Jake's chest. But instead of going for a killing blow, he pulled back at the last second. The claws raked across Jake's shoulder, tearing through fabric and leaving shallow cuts. Jake stumbled backward, blood seeping through his shirt. The alien crowd made approving sounds, This was what they expected, the primitive human being toyed with before his inevitable defeat. First blood to the Huntmaster, Kethfer announced. Perhaps the human would like to surrender now. The lesson has been demonstrated. Jake touched his shoulder and looked at the blood on his fingers. The cuts stung, but they weren't deep. Vraxel was playing with him, just like a cat with a mouse. Is that it? Jake asked. I've had worse cuts shaving, Vraxel. Yellow eyes narrowed. You wish me to be more serious? Very well. The Huntmaster attacked again, but this time Jake was ready. He dodged to the side as the claws swept past his head. Vraxel's follow-up strike caught him in the ribs, sending him sliding across the platform. Jake rolled with the impact and came up in a crouch. Better, Jake said, spitting blood. But you're still holding back. The human is tougher than expected, Dr. Veltar observed from the crowd. But notice how he moves after each impact. He's already showing signs of fatigue. Vraxel circled Jake slowly, his claws clicking against the platform's surface. You are correct, little human. I am holding back. Your species interests me. I wish to study how you fight before I end this. Study this, Jake said, and lunged. Forward, his attack caught Vraxel by surprise. The Huntmaster expected prey animals to run, not charge. Jake's fist connected with the alien's solar plexus, right where his ribs came together. Vraxel grunted and stepped back. The alien crowd fell silent. Several of them made sounds of disbelief. Their champion had been hurt by the primitive human. Impossible, someone whispered. Jake didn't waste time celebrating. He pressed his advantage, throwing a combination of punches at Vraxel's head and torso. Most of them were blocked by the alien's thick arms, but a few got through. Jake's knuckles split against the scaled hide, but Vraxel was definitely feeling the impacts. You hit harder than expected, Vraxel admitted. He flexed his arms, testing for damage. But you cannot win through strength alone. The Huntmaster's next attack was faster and more focused. His claws found Jake's left arm, opening deep cuts from shoulder to elbow. Jake hissed in pain but managed to grab Vraxel's wrist before he could pull back. The sound echoed through the docking bay like thunder. He twisted free from Jake's grip and backhanded him across the platform.
Oh, Jake it.
The raised edge hard enough to crack the metal. Now I am annoyed, Vraxel growled. No more games, human. No more mercy. Jake pulled himself up, using the platform's edge. His vision was blurry, and he could taste blood. His left arm was useless, hanging at his side and dripping onto the platform. But he was still standing, and that seemed to surprise everyone watching. Jake. Lisa called from below. That's enough. You proved your point. Did I? Jake asked, looking at the crowd of aliens. They were still watching him like he was entertainment. Some seemed impressed that he had lasted this long. But none of them looked worried about their champion. Vraxel charged again, but this time Jake was learning. He had been watching how the Huntmaster moved, studying his patterns. Vraxel was incredibly strong and fast, but he fought like someone who had never faced real opposition. His attacks were powerful but predictable. Jake slipped past the alien's guard and landed a brutal elbow strike to his throat. Vraxel stumbled, gasping for air. Jake followed up with a knee to the alien's side, targeting what looked like a weak spot between the scales. The human is adapting, Dr. Veltar said, his voice full of surprise. He's learning the Huntmaster's combat patterns during the fight itself. Kethfer replied. No species learns that quickly. But Jake was learning. Every punch, every dodge, every moment of pain was teaching him something new about his opponent. Vraxel was used to winning through intimidation and raw power. He had never faced someone who could take punishment and keep fighting back. The Huntmaster's next attack was wild with anger. His claws swept in wide arcs, trying to catch Jake anywhere they could, but rage made him sloppy. Jake ducked under a high swipe and drove his fist into Vraxel's knee. The alien's leg buckled. For the first time in the fight, Vraxel went down. To one knee, the crowd gasped. Their unbeatable champion was kneeling before the primitive human. This is not possible, Vraxel said, his voice filled with disbelief. You are weak. You are prey, yeah, Jake asked, circling the kneeling alien. Like a predator stalking wounded prey. Then why are you the one bleeding? It was true. Vraxel's throat was swollen from Jake's elbow strike. His knee was bent at an odd angle. His side showed a growing dark stain where internal bleeding had started. The Huntmaster was hurt, and everyone could see it. The human is exhibiting classic persistence predator behavior, Dr. Veltar said, his voice filled with academic fascination. He's not trying to win quickly. He's wearing down his opponent through sustained attack. Persistence predator? Kethver asked. Hunting strategy where the predator chases prey until it collapses from exhaustion. Very primitive, but effective against stronger opponents. Jake heard the conversation, but didn't let it distract him. Vraxel was getting back to his feet, favoring his injured leg. The alien's yellow eyes were filled with something Jake had never seen there before. Fear. Should have stayed down, Jake said. I am Vraxel, Huntmaster of the Korthok. The alien roared. I do not stay down for anyone. He lunged at Jake with desperate fury, but desperation made him careless. Jake sidestepped the attack and grabbed Vraxel's injured arm. Using the alien's own momentum against him, Jake threw him across the platform. Vraxel hit the raised edge with a sickening crack. He tried to get up, but his injured leg gave out. He fell back down, breathing heavily. Stay down, Jake warned. Moving closer, never Vraxel gasped. I am the Huntmaster. I do not yield. Jake looked at the injured alien, then at the crowd of watchers. They were all staring at him with new expressions. Not amusement or condescension, but something else. Something that might have been respect, or even fear. Your choice, Jake said. Vraxel tried to stand again, but his body was failing him. The sustained damage was taking its toll. He managed to get to his hands and knees, then collapsed again. Huntmaster is down, someone in the crowd whispered. The human is winning, another voice added. Jake stood over Vraxel, his fists clenched and ready. His own body was screaming with pain, but he was still standing, still fighting, still refusing to give up. This is impossible, Kethver said. The Huntmaster has never been defeated. Looks like there's a first time for everything. Pete called out from the crowd. Vraxel looked up at Jake with eyes that had lost their predatory gleam. For the first time in his life, the Huntmaster was looking at someone stronger than himself. Vraxel struggled to push himself up from the platform. His massive arms shook with the effort. Blood dripped from his mouth onto the metal surface below. The Huntmaster, who had never known defeat, was learning what it felt like to lose. Stay down, Jake said again. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with something primal. You're done. I am never done, Vraxel gasped. He managed to get to his knees, swaying dangerously. I am the Huntmaster. I have defeated warriors from 47 worlds. Make that 46, Jake replied. The alien crowd pressed closer. To the platform, they had never seen anything like this. Their greatest warrior, their ultimate enforcer, was being beaten by a creature they had dismissed as weak and primitive. This cannot be happening, Dr. Veltar muttered, checking his instruments frantically. According to all our data, humans lack the physical capabilities for this kind of combat performance. Your data is wrong, Pete called out from below. He was grinning despite the danger his friend was in. He never factored in pure, stubborn meanness. Vraxel lunged forward one more time, desperation driving him beyond his body's limits. But Jake was ready. He had learned to read the aliens' movements, to predict his attacks. As Vraxel charged, Jake stepped to the side and brought his elbow down on the back of the Huntmaster's neck. The impact drove Vraxel face first into the platform. He lay there for a moment, stunned. When he tried to rise again, his movements were slow and uncoordinated. The repeated impacts had damaged something vital in his nervous system.
Enough, Jake said.
But as he stepped closer, Vraxel's survival instincts kicked in. The Huntmaster rolled onto his back and swept his leg at Jake's ankles. Jake stumbled, but didn't fall. Vraxel's claws raked across Jake's thigh, opening new wounds. The human staggered backward, fresh blood flowing down his leg. Still got some fight left, Jake admitted. Pressing his hand against the bleeding cuts, Vraxel used the distraction to climb back to his feet. He was badly hurt, but he was still 8 feet of armored muscle and natural weapons. His yellow eyes focused on Jake with renewed hatred. You think you have one? Vraxel hissed. It's Korthok. We do not surrender. We do not yield. We fight until death takes us. If that's how you want it, Jake said. Something in his voice changed. The controlled calm was gone, replaced by something darker and more dangerous. Lisa heard the change and felt ice in her stomach. She had seen Jake like this only once before, during a mission that had gone horribly wrong. When Jake's voice got that flat, emotionless tone, people died. "Jake," she called out, "remember where you are." But Jake wasn't listening anymore. The pain, the blood loss, and the constant threat had triggered something deep in his brain. The civilized human who had walked onto this ship was gone. What stood on the platform now was something much older and more dangerous. Vraxel attacked with everything he had left. His claws whistled through the air in deadly arcs. His massive fists swung like hammers. For a few seconds he seemed to regain his dominance. But Jake moved like a different person now. He flowed around the alien's attacks like water, striking back with calculated precision. Every hit targeted weak points, joint connections, nerve clusters. He fought with the kind of focused violence that had made humans the dominant predator on their home world. "What is happening to the human?" Kethver asked. Fear crept into his voice. "Combat trance," Pete said quietly.
The Marines call it going black. When a human's survival is truly threatened, the civilized parts of their brains shut down.
What's left is pure predator instinct. Jake caught Vraxel's wrist as the alien swung at his head. Instead of blocking or dodging, Jake twisted the arm with sudden vicious force. The sound of breaking bone echoed across the platform. Vraxel screamed. In agony, the alien tried to pull away, but Jake held on. He drove his knee into Vraxel's elbow, shattering the joint completely. The Huntmaster's arm bent at an impossible angle. "Stop," Vraxel begged. "Please, I yield. I surrender." Jake looked at him with eyes that showed no mercy, no recognition of surrender. In his current state, he only understood one thing. The threat had to be eliminated completely. "The human cannot hear you," Dr. Veltar said in horror. "He has entered a state of pure survival aggression. He will not stop until the threat is completely neutralized." Jake grabbed Vraxel by the throat with both hands. The alien's good arm clawed desperately at Jake's face, opening cuts across his cheek and forehead. But Jake didn't even seem to notice the pain. "This is what you wanted to see," Jake said, his voice barely human. "This is what humans really are underneath all the civilization and diplomacy. We're the species that hunted mammoths with sharp sticks. We're the ones who turned wolves into pets and made fire our servant. We don't just survive, we dominate." Vraxel's struggles grew weaker as Jake's grip tightened on his throat. The massive alien who had terrorized dozens of species was being choked to death by bare human hands. "Stop him," Kethver ordered. "Someone stop the human before he kills." The Huntmaster. Several aliens moved toward the platform, but Pete drew his sidearm. "I wouldn't," he warned. "Jake's protecting us all right now. You interrupt him, you become the new threat." On the platform, Vraxel's eyes were rolling back. In his head, his body was going limp from lack of oxygen. Jake maintained his grip, applying pressure with mechanical precision. "Jake," Lisa called out desperately. "Jake, you won. You proved your point. He's done." For a moment, it seemed like Jake couldn't hear her. Then something flickered in his eyes. The human part of his mind began to fight its way back through the red haze of combat. Fury Jake blinked and looked down at Vraxel. The Huntmaster was unconscious, barely breathing. Jake's hands were still locked around his throat. Slowly, Jake released his grip. Vraxel collapsed to the platform, gasping for air but alive. Jake stood over him, swaying slightly as exhaustion, and pain caught up with him. The docking bay was completely silent. Hundreds of aliens stared at the human who had just done the impossible. Their greatest warrior lay broken at his feet, defeated not by superior technology or numbers, but by the raw, primal fury of a species they had thought they understood. Jake looked up at the crowd, blood running down his face and arms. His clothes were torn and soaked with blood, both his own and Vraxel's. He looked like something out of their worst nightmares. "Anyone else want to discuss humanity's place in the galactic community?" Jake asked. Nobody answered. The silence stretched on, until it became uncomfortable. Finally, Kethver stepped forward, his forearms held carefully away from his body in a gesture of non-aggression. "Perhaps the ambassador," said carefully, "we should reconsider the terms of humanity's integration into galactic society." Jake nodded and sat down heavily on the edge of the platform. "That sounds like a good idea." Medical teams rushed onto the platform within minutes. Jake watched as alien doctors worked frantically over Vraxel's unconscious form. Strange devices beeped and hummed as they checked the Huntmaster's vital signs. One of the doctors looked up at Jake with what might have been respect or fear. "He will live," the doctor announced. "Multiple fractures, severe trauma to the throat, possible brain injury from oxygen loss. But he will survive." Jake nodded. He wasn't sure how he felt about that. Part of him was relieved. The bigger part was still humming with leftover adrenaline. And the urge to finish what he had started. Lisa climbed onto the platform with a medical kit from their shuttle. "Your turn," she said, kneeling beside Jake. "You look like you went through a meat grinder." "Feel like it too," Jake admitted. Now that the fight was over, his body was reminding him of every cut, bruise, and impact. His left arm hung useless. At his side, blood still seeped from dozens of wounds. As Lisa worked on his injuries, Jake looked out at the crowd of aliens. They were all staring at him, but their expressions had changed completely. Before the fight, they had looked at him like a curiosity or a pet. Now they watched him like a dangerous animal that might attack at any moment. Captain Morrison, Kethver, approached the platform carefully, his forearms raised in a peaceful gesture that was ... impressive. "That was necessary," Jake corrected. He winced as Lisa cleaned a deep cut on his forehead. "You needed to understand something about humans." "And what is that?" Jake met the ambassador's eyes. "We're not your pets. We're not your children. We're sure as hell not your subjects." Dr. Veltar pushed through the crowd, his instruments clicking frantically as he scanned Jake from a distance. "Remarkable. His hormone levels are still elevated, but returning to baseline, heart rate decreasing. The human combat trance appears to be reversible." "Combat trance?" Kethver asked. "A state of enhanced aggression triggered by extreme threat," Veltar explained. "Several species show similar responses, but never to this degree. For approximately 4 minutes, this human became a perfect killing machine." 4 minutes was enough, Pete observed. He had climbed onto the platform and was helping Lisa with the medical supplies. Vraxel stirred on his medical stretcher. His yellow eyes opened and immediately found Jake. For a moment, fear flickered across the alien's features. Then something else replaced it. Something that might have been understanding. "Human," Vraxel croaked through his damaged throat. "Hunt." Master Jake replied, "I underestimated you, my people. We respect strength above all else. You have shown true strength." Vraxel struggled to lift his good arm. After a moment of hesitation, Jake reached out and clasped the alien's hand. It was an awkward grip, human fingers against scaled claws, but the meaning was clear. Vraxel continued. "More dangerous than we knew. But dangerous does not mean evil. Galaxy needs dangerous allies." "Allies," Jake repeated. "I like the sound of that better than subjects." Ambassador Kethver watched this exchange with growing concern. "Huntmaster, surely you do not suggest that humans be granted full council membership immediately. They are still a young species. They still wage war among themselves."
So do the
"Zeridians," Vraxel pointed out. "So do the Throckeri. So do most council species. These humans are honest about their nature." The crowd of aliens began to murmur among themselves. Jake could hear fragments of conversation in a dozen different languages. Some sounded worried. Others seemed excited. A few were clearly afraid. The human's performance suggests several errors. "In our initial assessment," Dr. Veltar announced to the crowd, "humans are not primarily tool users. They are persistence predators who learn to use tools. Their apparent physical weakness masks significant advantages in endurance, adaptability, and psychological resilience." "What does that mean?" "Called out, it means they're hunters," Veltar replied. "Not just of animals, but of anything they decide is prey, including other intelligent species, if threatened." A chill seemed to pass through the crowd. Jake could see the aliens processing this new information. He was no longer a primitive curiosity. He was a representative of a species that could fight back. Captain Morrison, Kethfer said finally. Perhaps we should discuss new terms for Earth's relationship with the Galactic Council. I'm listening, Jake said. Lisa had finished bandaging his wounds and was helping him stand. His legs felt shaky, but he managed to stay upright. Full council membership, Kethfer said, with all rights and responsibilities. Status: no gradual integration period. And in return? Jake asked. In return, humanity agrees to follow council law regarding interspecies conflict. No aggressive expansion. No unprovoked attacks on council members. Jake looked at Lisa and Pete. Lisa nodded slightly. Pete just grinned. We can live with that, Jake said. But you need to understand something. If any council member attacks Earth or threatens our people, we will respond. And after today, you know what our response looks like. Kethfer said quickly. Full defensive rights are included in council membership. Word of the fight was already spreading throughout. The ship. Jake could see aliens hurrying through the corridors, probably carrying news to their home worlds. By tomorrow, every species in the galaxy would know that humans had defeated the Huntmaster in single combat. There will be challenges, Dr. Veltar warned. Some species will want to test human strength for themselves. Others may see you as a threat to be eliminated. Let them come, Pete said. We've got 3 billion more where Jake came from. 3 billion. An alien voice squeaked from the crowd. 3 billion humans who can fight like that? Another added. Actually, it's closer to 8 billion, Lisa corrected helpfully.
Ice.
That's just on Earth. We have colonies on 6 other worlds now. The silence that followed was deafening. Jake could practically see the aliens doing math in their heads. 8 billion persistence predators with space travel and advanced weapons. The galaxy had just become a much more interesting place. Perhaps, Kethfer said carefully, we should also discuss trade agreements, cultural exchange programs, and mutual defense treaties. Now you're talking, Jake said. Hours later, Jake sat in the shuttle as they prepared to return to Earth. His body was covered in bandages, but the important work was done. The preliminary agreements were signed. Humanity was now a full member of the Galactic Council, with all the rights and protections that came with it. Think they'll actually honor the agreements? Pete asked. They will, Jake said confidently, because now they know what happens if they don't. Lisa looked up from her diplomatic notes. You realize you've probably started a new arms race? Species is going to want to know if their warriors can beat a human in combat. Good, Jake replied. Competition makes everyone stronger. Through the shuttle window, he could see the Harmony wing growing smaller as they pulled away.
In a few
hours, they would be back on Earth, reporting to the President and the UN Security Council. The age of human isolation was over. In the ship's medical bay, Braxel lay in his recovery bed, staring at the ceiling. His injuries would heal, but his understanding of the universe had changed forever. For the first time in his life, he had met a species that could match the Korthok in pure fighting ability. The galaxy would never be the same. Somehow, that felt like a good thing.